Hello, and welcome to a Read That Book Challenge vlog video. I haven't done one of these in a while because this is a challenge that Sarah Jane from The Book Life, and I do where we challenge each other to read different books and then we vlog them. Her and I have both not been in very good reading moods lately, and she was the one that challenged me last, but it is time. I am reading Darkfever. This is one of Sarah Jane's favorite series, this Fever series by Karen Marie Moning, and it's a urban fantasy series. I think this first book came out in 2011 or before. The publishing date of this one says 2011, but this could be just for this version. I'm about 30 pages in. It's an urban fantasy series. A lot of people are pretty familiar with it because it's pretty popular. The main character's sister gets murdered in Dublin, and she goes to investigate, and there are fae and paranormal things happening. So I'm about 30 pages in. What's nice about this, because I'm really slumpy, is the text is like huge. And it's urban fantasy, which I've talked about before, I essentially grew up on. And so like the tropes are very nostalgic for me. I will say that this is very dated already. Obviously a lot of urban fantasy is. Urban fantasy gets dated really, really fast. So there's all these references that are just like so old, which is just kind of fun. Like she talks about her iPod and like her Bose speakers that her iPod plugs into. And she's like Googling things, basically, searching things, right? But she's saying that she like asked Jeeves. The millennial babies know. So yeah, there's a lot of different like references like that. I haven't even really gotten into character descriptions of stuff, which I'm sure will be very, again, dated. So yeah, I will see. This is a series that I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel. I know I've had people say that they like hated it. I hold a certain kind of affection for urban fantasy, like I was saying. So there's a chance that I could like know it's not great and still really enjoy it for what it is. Also, even Sarah Jane is like, that first book is like not that good. So we'll see. We'll see. One of the other series that she recommended me a while ago that I did start and still haven't continued, even though I do enjoy it, is the Stray series by Rachel Vincent. And I had similar feelings of like, I just love urban fantasy, even though there's a lot of issues with that, with like a lot of the tropes that happen in urban fantasy. So I feel like this could be a similar, just like bingeable read. I mean, the fact that I've read 30 pages is good because lately reading like for 15 minutes has been a struggle. So we're trying. So I'm about 75 pages into Darkfever. Not hating it, but knowing also what I'm getting into. Like I'm going into this like not expecting greatness, right? But it is so easy to read, which is really nice. I have run into some of the issues that I already know people have with the book. So at one point, Barron's, who's eventually the love interest, but is not in this book, he threatens, this is gonna sound like I'm trying to make excuses for him, I'm not, but he threatens the main character, basically trying to scare her into going home, and not getting basically in his way, but also hurt, because of her getting into all this paranormal shit that she has no idea what she's doing. So he grabs her very roughly in a way that like the next day she has bruises. So that's an issue, obviously. And then just now, she asked him what his ethnicity was, and he says a couple different like older cultures, and our main character says like primitive and barbaric are these like combination of genes, and then goes on to mention some of the like slight exotic features that he has, and I'm like, yeah, that's an issue. Again, very indicative of the writing of the time, I would say, because again, this came out possibly early 2010s or before that. So not an excuse that was ever okay, but rather understanding the context in which this was written, and the fact that like people didn't know, a lot of ignorance more so than actual malicious intent is what I'm getting from this. So anyway, yeah, our main character's a little dumb, but she also kind of admits that she's dumb because she's telling this story almost in like a past tense, like she's saying, here's where I am now and here's where I was then. So she does have a couple of lines where she's like, wow, I was still so much in shock from my sister's death that I was being really stupid. And it's like, okay, you're not being the brightest crayon in the box right now. So yeah, but anyway, kind of what I needed a little bit. The fact that I've read 70 pages in like 2 days is more than I've read in a while. Hello. Update on Darkfever. So I am 182 pages into this now, and a lot of the similar things that I said at the very beginning. This is super easy to read, very dated, and now that I've had more time with her, Mac as a character is kind of all over the place. Again, I went in with super low expectations, so it's kind of fine. But she's kind of all over the place. Like, sometimes she acts super immature and like super naive, and she is only 22, so like it kind of makes sense. But she goes like back and forth where I'm like, man, if I didn't know your age, it would be super hard to actually place how you are. And she's just like really over the top and like a caricature of a person. You know, wears all this pink. There was a whole scene describing like exactly how pretty she was, but it's not as annoying as like some YA books that do that, because she's like, no, I know I'm pretty. So like that's kind of okay. But just like the way that like some of the descriptions and stuff are just like really cringy. But then there will be moments of like really good lines, which is why I understand why Sarah Jane really likes this series. There's some lines that are just like, ooh, that was a good one. Mostly when talking about like Fae stuff, or like Barrons is talking or something. As far as Barrons, obviously I already mentioned that like I've gotten some of the scenes where he's like a little over aggressive, where she calls him exotic. It's a problem, little dated, no, we shouldn't really be doing that. And I think, I'm not sure if I really know what he ends up being, because I think he's a paranormal creature. I want to say, is he a werewolf? I wouldn't be shocked. Anyway, it hasn't been revealed in here yet, like what paranormal creature he is. But since she's talking in like past tense, and there's occasional lines where she's like, I didn't know it at the time, but blah blah blah. She reveals that like in one scene he had human blood on him, but she didn't know it at the time and stuff like that. So I'm thinking, and he also just had like a standoff with a vampire. So I'm like, are you a werewolf? I feel, because the way she describes him and like his sort of like animalistic nature is very traditional urban fantasy stuff, so I wouldn't be shocked about that. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but found out that the Fae in here are kind of aliens. I don't know how much that's touched on, but basically says like they're not from our planet. Where usually when I hear about like Fae or sometimes demons or whatever, they'll say they're from like another realm, like another reality. But another planet, I haven't really heard that before. But they're still your like traditional Fae. There was just a fairly uncomfortable scene where she meets a prince. I feel like Sarah Jane's told me about this character before, but a prince of the Sealy court, and he's like I think like a incubus, succubus. What would the version of that be? But he basically makes people want to have sex. So there's essentially like she's like ripping her clothes off. They don't do anything, but I suspect something happens later with him, and it's essentially, you know, like a magical rape. It got really uncomfortable because there hasn't really been very vivid sex descriptions in here. I know that a lot of urban fantasy has like smut sex scenes in them, but there hadn't really been any of that at all. And then all of a sudden it was like her talking about all of these like sexual things, and I was like, oh, that was kind of out of nowhere. I get that he appeared out of nowhere, but like what? And again, all the things people have talked about with this book before, of like, she basically has a death wish. She does all this really dumb shit. She's seen so many horrible Fae at this point, and she still is like, I have to go and try to do stuff to save my sister. And it's like, girl, you know, like there's a ton of like supernatural creatures looking for you at this point. Like, what are you doing? But she says, like, there was just a line where she's like, I don't have a death wish, but I was on a mission. And I'm like, no. These two things are not mutually exclusive. No, you're kind of dumb. But again, it's easy to read, and that's fine with me. Urban fantasy is oddly comforting to me since I read a lot of it when I was younger. It is making me kind of want to go back and read the Anita Blake series. Don't let Matthew hear that. Matthew, if we end up doing a readathon or a read-along or something, it's all your fault and this book's fault. But anyway, I can see myself, unless something horrible happens and it becomes even worse trashiness, I can see myself like getting these from the library on Kindle and just like binging them because they're so easy. And I do sense that they might get better. I don't know. We'll see what this book has in store. So I am 210 pages in. Also, don't perceive me. My hair is reacting poorly to the humidity. But Mac continues to be like a little bit dumb. There still continues to be references that are just like so incredibly dated, but that's okay. But that's also why I don't tend to like when contemporary books or any kind of book does any kind of pop culture reference, because it immediately dates your book. But anyway, they just saw the guy who has like a bunch of, like the mobster who has a bunch of Christian iconography in his office, and she was saying how like Barron's reacted in a weird way and she doesn't know why. So I'm like, is he a vampire? Is he a vampire? But they already like saw the other vampire. But a werewolf wouldn't react to Christian iconography. I didn't think people talked about him being a vampire, but is he? He's definitely not human. I know that. But I thought werewolf. But also, her being 22, like I said before, where it's like she feels like she's young, but then she doesn't, and it's like all over the place. He had this like little interaction with his like assistant, Fiona, who's like obviously in love with him, who seems like she's like slightly older, but then he's gonna fall in love with Mac. And this is where like the older I get, the more I'm like, why? Like if he is some kind of immortal being, why not hang out with another hot immortal being? I don't know. I'm sure it'll all get like revealed, but I'm like, sir, if you are so like cool and interesting, but I guess she is also cool and interesting, but she's still 22. Anyway, we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going. Okay, so I've got to the part where Mac finds out that she's like adopted, but doesn't know from what family exactly. And then went to find where Alina was murdered and look it over, and there's an address etched there, whatever. So doesn't get anywhere with the police and is like, I should talk to Barron's, but then sees Barron's going into the darkness, which again, I know he's paranormal. I don't know what he is yet. Vampire? I don't know. I still can't figure that part out. And she's like, I'm not asking him anything. And it's like, you dumb bitch. It's just, I don't frequently get frustrated with characters, but it's like, he blatantly knows things. He's already helped you out a ton. If he wanted you dead, you would be. And he's the one that can definitely help you out with this address that's probably in the underbelly of Dublin. Like they said earlier in the book, there was like a whole city under the city kind of thing. Probably something like that. So your one source that will absolutely have the information you need, I'm not gonna do it. He's kept you safe like 6 times so far, and you're stuck with him anyway. Use the resource, you idiot. She goes into the area that she knows all of the deadly things are and finds the address in the deadly dead zone, and goes by herself. And there's something that, like, it doesn't quite redeem it, but the book does say, like, because she's almost telling it from the future when she's more, like, learned about everything, that, like, I don't know what I was thinking. I was really stupid. I must have had a death wish. I had death wish a lot in those days, but it's still, like, this is very, very stupid. Like, you've seen so much at this point that how much just naivete am I going to deal with here? I guess it pushes a story. I mean, I guess the author is like, look, I have the self-awareness to know this is stupid, but we're just gonna like explain it away with a hand wave. I don't know. So we have an unseelie portal of death and like 20 more pages to go. I hope we find out what Barron's is this book. There's only 2 more chapters, but like, I would rather just know now. And he's obviously gonna have to save her dumb ass. Which I don't love, but I would just like to know what we're working with here, you know? I think I'm gonna finish this tonight because I want to see how this ridiculousness ends. She's in a fight sequence, and she's never been taught how to fight. There's just a line, I mean, I stopped like reading it like mid-line to record this. Like there was a line about her being like, I can feel myself becoming someone else. It's like, you haven't even had a training sequence. Like they haven't even tried to convince us that she might know because Barron's has like maybe taught her. No, they had a sequence where they went around looking for a fae to kill and she didn't fight it or anything. And now she's fighting in a horde full of unseelie. No, she wouldn't. No, she wouldn't. No. She wouldn't know how to do that. I know, Tally. I don't agree either. It doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, I finished it. We don't even find out what he is. I know one of you will probably leave a comment and tell me, like, I'd rather you didn't, but if you did, like, whatever. I know I've heard before. Like, I think I know in the dark recesses of my mind, but I've forgotten. And I guess I'll just keep reading these for fun trash pocket content. I don't know. It was like a 2-star. It's fun. Yeah, like a 2. I don't actively hate it. I think she's kind of dumb. I think there's promise, potentially, for it to just be like a 3-star series for me if I keep reading them, like from the library. I'll get them on like Kindle or something, because there are certain lines that are very, very good. But yes, it's still very dated. She's a character that is a little dumb for me at times. I want to know what he is. Yeah, and it kind of is an abrupt ending. Like, you get to this like reveal of this unseelie portal and then it's just done. And urban fantasies kind of do that sometimes. Like, I wouldn't say that's completely uncommon as a trope for there to be like all this buildup and then like bang and then it ends. This whole like peak and then ending is like a very urban fantasy thing of the ones that I've read. So yeah, I think there's like, what, 5 books in the like original series or something. So I don't know. I can see myself continuing to read them. I want to see a little bit why like Sarah Jane loves them so much. And she told me, like everyone's told me, that book 1 is like kind of garbage. It's fine. There's something about, like, it was fine for me. There's something about urban fantasy because I grew up on it and I read so much of it that I just like, I can like read bad urban fantasy. It doesn't really bother me. Why am I slouching like a goblin right now? Okay, I can do this. I don't know what I want to challenge Sarah Jane to read because I don't know what her reading life has been like lately besides like just not very active like mine. And I don't know what's still on her TBR. So I'm not going to challenge her to something right now. I will tell her, and then if she wants to film a video, she can do that. Or she cannot. Whatever she decides to do, but I don't want to put pressure on her in a video like this. But yeah, if you read this series, since it is pretty popular, if you read this first book, comment down below, let me know your thoughts. Like I said, don't give me any spoilers for like the later books in the series, because I'll read at least like one more just to see. Urban fantasy's easy, and right now my brain only wants easy. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.